What's going on, everyone? So, a lot of talk about Clint Capela and Clint Capela being a very likely option for the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I've talked about how I'd love to see Clint Capela as our backup, playing a backup role. Go trade for Claxton or Mark Williams or Walker Kessler, or whoever, right? Go trade for a center, right? And then, in my opinion, Lakers need two centers. They need a clear-cut starter, and then they need a backup center. And Clint Capela is a guy that I think would be one of the better backups in the league. He's still one of the best offensive rebounders in the league. He would be ideal for Luka as that lob threat, floor runner, right? Big, physical. Yes, he's not what he was, in his Houston days or anything like that. But he is a guy that I do still think is a very good center, still a good basketball player, especially for what the Lakers need. You can make an argument the Lakers don't really need this like high-end center, right? They don't need a Joel Embiid type of center, right? That can just, do everything. Like, it'd be nice. It'd be a great thing to have, but especially right now with Luka and LeBron and going on the assumption that the Lakers are going to keep Austin Reeves, do you really need a center to be a 20 and 10 guy? Because he's probably not going to necessarily be that for you because he's not going to get the ball in the way that he would elsewhere, right? Like, yes, Luke is going to be the guy that's setting him up and look for that lob threat. That's why it's like, hey, you really need a lob threat, right? Because Luke is going to generate, he's going to do everything, and then he's going to just kind of feed that outlet as often and regular as he can, right? So you're going to feast off of that. But you don't really need this like super skilled big man just going to work, right? Being able to like cross folks over, and you don't need this like super skilled center, right? So I do think a guy like a Clint Capela makes a ton of sense. I think he'll be a double digit a game scorer guy. And then also, again, give you the rebounding, offensive rebounds, be able to do the dirty work, big physical, do those things, right? I like it. I also don't hate the idea if worst case scenario, and I've talked about this before, if worst case scenario, you told me Clint Capela was going to be our starter next year, I'd still want another backup, a Jericho Sims or something like that, somebody that you can get cheap, vet minimum deal, right? Maybe keep Jackson Hayes. I like Jackson Hayes better as a backup, but I'd still kind of like him as like our third big, like another big physical center in case Capela needs the night off or something like that. But regardless, right? Point is if you told me Clint Capela was going to be our starter, I don't think that that's the end of the world, right? Again, I don't think it's the most ideal. It's not my favorite, but I don't think it's like, oh no, like what are the Lakers? Like I think it'd be fine for what the Lakers need. Because again, I don't think the Lakers need this like super skilled center. I just think they need somebody like Clint Capela. Can you block the occasional shot? Can you rebound the basketball? And can you be that lob threat? Okay, well, Clint Capela can be all those three of those things, right? So to me, I look at it as like, and I think that there is a genuine question and argument. And of course, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. But Clint Capela being a backup, it's probably what he's going to be anywhere. One of the leg up that the Lakers could have is telling him, like, hey, come to us and you'll be a starter, right? We'll sign you for, the mid-level exception or something like that. Yeah, you might be able to get slightly more money elsewhere, but you'll get to start with us. You're going to play a big role, maybe a big part of this team, right? And, I'd want another backup big, and then the Lakers are still going to run small ball and do all that stuff. Okay, fine. But I do think that there's an argument that it may even be worth going that route based on the guys that are available. Like Nick Claxton, I like Nick Claxton a lot, but he doesn't have the weight. He's 215 pounds. Now, defensively, I think he is a very versatile defensive player. I think he would be fantastic. Don't get me wrong. If you can get Nick Claxton for a reasonable price, I wouldn't hate it at all. His contract goes down each year. But I don't think like are the Lakers a contender with just Nick Claxton? Probably not. Right? And given what Capela can do for this team and Nick Claxton can do, yes, I think you'd be more versatile defensively, but I think a lot of the stuff you'd be looking for from Nick Claxton, Capela could kind of fill that role, right? Maybe Claxton could do it a little better, but I still think you could get what you need from Clint Capela. And so, yes, Daniel Gafford, I'd probably do it for Daniel Gafford. I probably would jump at the opportunity for that. But outside of that, unless you can get a Walker Kessler or Jalen Duren or one of these guys, right, which I don't realistically think that they're going to be able to do. Maybe they revisit the Mark Williams trade, sure. But again, is he healthy, right? Are those medical concerns the Lakers have? Are those still present, right? There's a lot of questions there. But Lakers need more than just the center position, right? So I do think that, okay, if you can get a Clint Capela as like a stopgap or even for like, 2 years or something, like, hey, because he's not like, if he was like 36, I'd probably feel very different about this. But, if you could sign him to, a 2 year with like a team option or something like that, right? And bring him in. And now you have him as your starting center. Like I said, go bring in a Jericho Sims. But now you can use the trade assets that you have to now go and pivot to go get the other needs that you have, right? Because the problem is, like, Lakers need two-way players. They need 3-and-D guys. They need a center. They need a lot of things. Right? But like I mentioned earlier, I don't think you need this super high skilled center. I don't think you need this center that can be that has to be this 30-point a game guy. I think you just need a center that can do the things that Clint Capela could do. You bring in Clint Capela. He's your guy. You got him for free. You didn't have to trade assets to go get him. You bring in a Jericho Sims or something like that as your primary backup. Now you got two big physical lob threat bigs that you didn't have to give up anything to go and acquire. And now you can use Dalton Connect and your first round pick and then your 5 pick swaps and then Austin Reeves if you need to and Rui Hachimura and all these other things to now go get those other two-way guys, right? Can you maybe get in a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade, or can you maybe get into, some type of deal, right? The Giannis trade I've talked about, like maybe you can kind of get in on some of these pieces. Maybe now you don't need a Claxton. Maybe you're looking and shifting focus on like a Cam Johnson, right? So the thing that I kind of am for, and not really, I think you can even make an argument may even be a better route for the Lakers, just particularly for this season, is going and just getting the centers that can provide what you're looking for, right? They might not be the most ideal. They might not be the best long-term answers, right? But just kind of going in, like I said, getting a Claxton, getting a Jericho Sims, maybe you even draft a guy with the 55th pick. Right? Lakers have the 55th pick in the draft. So maybe you're spending the next 2 years kind of growing and developing that guy while you're riding a Clint Capela, and, a Jericho Sims for 2 years while you're developing this guy, boom. And then, maybe Jericho moves up in the starting unit and then you bring in your 55th pick as your backup. And then you're kind of going that way, like the development route, right? And a guy like a Jericho Sims is young enough to where he could potentially be the starter in a year or so, right? Or even make that transition at some point where Jericho moves up and Capella comes down, whatever. Point is I think now if you go and you do something like that, well, now you're in a much better position because now you haven't used your assets. Because to go get Nick Claxton, you're going to have to give up Rui Hachimura and then, right? Because he's making, $27 million or whatever it is, right? So like you have to give up multiple guys. You're going to have to give up probably a Rui Hachimura and a Gabe Vincent just to go get that Nick Claxton trade done, right? Well, that's $28 million in expiring salary that you could probably use for other pieces, or if not, maybe closer to the trade deadline, those become more valuable because teams want to get off of guys. And you might have been able to get a guy or two that you're not able to get anymore because you don't have that. And it's like, how much better are the Lakers with Nick Claxton over, say, a Clint Capela? Right? Because the Jericho Sims example that I've been using, you could do either way, right? So it really would be, like a Nick Claxton and a Clint Capela. How much better would you be? I mean, you could even make an argument genuinely, how much better would you be with Daniel Gafford and Clint Capela? And I know some people are going to look at it like, oh, Clint Capela. Clint Capela was basically an 8-and-8 guy in limited minutes, right, off the bench in an inconsistent role where, yes, they had Trae Young, one of the better playmakers, but he's not Luka in the sense of like he's always looking for that outlet. Right, it's just kind of like like when he's gonna run the pick and roll action, or it's just kind of like that opportunity's there. Like Luka is actively hunting and searching for that exact play, right? So I think in a starting position for the Lakers, I think Clint Capela is minimum a double-double guy. I think he's probably a 12 and 10 guy, maybe 12 and 11 guy. But again, he's one of the best offensive rebounders, right? And so, again, like Daniel Gafford, again, I would probably get it done for because he's physically strong. Like, he gives you everything that you want Clint Capela to look for, but he's also, 4 or 5 years younger, right? So you have the long-term upside with it. But outside of that, right, again, how much better are you going to be? Like, you might be better defensively, but you're still going to need the perimeter help. Right? So to me, it's like, okay, like the trade-off would be to go get that perimeter help. I look at it, I don't hate the idea of just go get a Clint Capela, have him slot in, let him be your starting center, and then now go look to round out your perimeter depth and your bench depth and all these other things. Right? It's kind of where I'm at. But again, however you feel either way, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.